So the mystery is solved. We now know who paused the aid to Ukraine, and it was not President Trump. So I thought it was somebody other than that, and it's not who I thought it was either. Let's get into this. So we saw post after post in social media, for example, saying nothing says Trump is a Russian asset like halting military aid to Ukraine as North Korea ramps up military aid to Russia. Well, you have to prove that he's a Russian asset before you say it. Now, that doesn't mean it didn't have the effect of him being a Russian asset. Like if he was a Russian asset, certainly he might do those kind of things. But the effect of slowing this down, this aid down, is still helping the Russians nonetheless. So I get that. But it doesn't turn out, or it turns out it wasn't Trump. Okay, European partners were reportedly caught off guard as U.S. halts arms shipments to Ukraine. Yeah, if it was the Trump administration doing it as the administration, you would think that they would be alerting them, or at least alerting congressmen or United States senators, saying, "Hey, look, what are you doing here? We need to know what's going on." Here, Secretary Hegseth, we write regarding Department of Defense's recent decision to pause shipments of critical munitions. The decision places Ukraine's future in jeopardy, encourages Vladimir Putin, sows doubt among our closest allies. We urge you to reverse this decision, redouble your efforts to support Ukraine as it fights for its future. The following munitions are reportedly suspended, and they list them from Patriot missiles down to Sparrows and Hellfire ground missiles and that sort of thing. And the Sparrows, I understand, it's not even like we would use them anywhere else, as far as I understand how those are used. At any rate, this was presented by a number of senators and congressmen. And so, okay, so that didn't make sense. I'm going to get to who it is in just a moment. Let me still build my case. Trump told Zelensky that he wanted to help with Ukraine's air defense and said that he would look into whether any U.S. military aid had been halted. Now, that was today, and I was thinking okay, when I was laying out my earlier video in the day, I said, okay, well, we have two bad scenarios. Either Trump is lying and he wasn't going to do this, and that's a bad scenario. And then there's another scenario that's still kind of bad, but not quite as bad. And I said, so this is the guy, Elbridge Colby, who apparently was the guy that did this thing. But it's not. It's not him. Turns out I thought it was him. And I said, if it is him, then that's bad that Trump doesn't know that this is going on because he's doing it and Trump's not even aware of it because Marco Rubio has too many hats as Secretary of State and National Security Advisor and whatever else he's doing that, Trump just closed here or there or whatever. Okay, so that would be bad, but it wasn't him. So why the halt to the U.S. weapons couldn't come at a worse time. The Wall Street Journal is now castigating Trump for this. The Wall Street Journal is a pretty conservative paper, and you see it also in the New York Post, also another conservative-leaning kind of paper. Trump must reverse the dangerous Ukraine aid halt. They say this: Pentagon's decision to pause aid to Ukraine is a massive blunder. President Donald Trump should reverse it as soon as possible. The White House confirmed today that to put America's interests first, the United States won't be sending promised and much needed artillery rounds, Patriot air defense system, rocket systems, Hellfire missiles, and other weapons to Kyiv. The excuse, a Pentagon assessment, raised concerns that the United States, our own weapon stores, are running too low. But that doesn't make any sense because the kinds of things that we're trying to use or that we would be needing for China would be very different weapon systems than the kind of weapon systems that are going to be sent to Ukraine in a European land war as opposed to a kind of naval war. It's kind of weird. Dmitry Peskov was cheering the fewer weapons that are supplied to Ukraine, the closer to the end of the special military operation. We know how that goes. Yet Trump's minions, or Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, have done some faulty risk assessment here. The consequences of letting Russia conquer its neighbor will be far more dire than a less than full weapons store. Okay, that was from the New York Post. Okay, so who was it? And again, I was talking about this morning and saying well, I think it might be this guy without Trump knowing, and that's bad. It would be Trump knowing and doing it would be far worse. Turns out it's Pete Hegseth. And Pete Hegseth has done this before. Pete Hegseth, the Pentagon chief, halted military aid to Ukraine without Trump's approval. He did this again back in May. like, okay, so this is actually the third time. Here's it was first found in the NBC News broke this, and then here it is in the Kyiv Independent. Disingenuous. Hegseth paused Ukraine weapons despite Pentagon's finding aid wouldn't hurt U.S. readiness. So the Pentagon already knew that this halting this aid wouldn't hurt U.S. readiness, and Hegseth does it anyway. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth unilaterally halted weapons shipment to Ukraine on 2 July, despite internal military assessments showing the aid would not compromise American military readiness. NBC News reported this on July 4, citing 3 U.S. officials. The pause in aid, which included critical air defense systems and ammunition, reportedly caught the State Department, members of Congress, Ukraine, and key European allies off guard. Everyone that I just mentioned. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Like, so he did this again without like Trump even knowing. It's kind of embarrassing if you're Trump for that to be happening, right? Ukraine suffered one of the largest attacks then on July 4th. So he has a meeting. So Ukraine aid is suspended. He's talking to Putin and he doesn't even know or doesn't. So yesterday he was talking to Putin. He didn't even raise the conversation about the suspension. Like there was nothing in the transcript about that. We're like what gives? Well, if he didn't know, and maybe he did know, but he doesn't. It's not clear that he would have known at this point. U.S. senior. By the way, some of you are going to say I'm defending Trump. I'm not defending Trump. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of what was actually happening. Senior U.S. military review had concluded that while some munition stockpiles, including precision weapons, were low, they had not fallen below the critical thresholds, according to NBC. Despite this, Hegseth opted to stop the shipment. This is reportedly his third such move since February. So that's Hegseth. So you know where Hegseth's mind is now. We're not at any lower point stockpile wise than we've been in the last 3.5 years of the Ukraine conflict. Congressman Adam Smith, the top Democrat in the House Armed Services Committee, said. Smith, who said his staff reviewed the Pentagon's figures, called the justification disingenuous, hence the headline here of disingenuous. Hegseth, who paused the deliveries. Okay, lawmakers from both parties, including Republican Congressman Michael McCaul, expressed frustration at the lack of advance notice. Now's the time to show Putin we mean business, McCaul wrote on X. Okay, so that's where we are. And this was also found in NBC News that broke the story. And so, yeah, that's it. Now, that comes on the backdrop of July 4th. Today was the biggest attack, overnight drone missile attack of the entire war. And that's after the the 5 heaviest Russian aerial attacks on Ukraine since February all came in June 2025, June 2025, June 2025, June 2025, and June 2025. So that's the backdrop where we're saying we're not going to provide you these air defense. It just looks terrible. It's like a black eye for America. All right, my friends, that's all that I have. I want to say thank you to those of you who donated to the fundraiser that we had just completed. 975 of you donated. We were looking for 78,000 for these drones for the defenders of the 100th Mechanized Brigade in Touretsk, and you came up with 85,000. The spillover will go to that unit as well. Thank you so much for being the kind of people that care, that for listening to this video all the way through so that you can understand what's going on. Thank you for the time, the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.